Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the surprisingly complex mind of a capybara, that beloved barrel-shaped rodent who's become the internet's favorite Zen master. But here's the thing, while everyone sees this chill, semi-aquatic therapist who lets birds perch on their head and monkeys use them as furniture, there's a whole internal monologue happening that you probably couldn't handle. Being everyone's emotional support animal isn't as relaxing as it looks. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you've got pets, drop a comment about what you think they might be overthinking about. I bet your cat has some opinions about your life choices. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey through one anxious creature's mind. You open one eye, then immediately wish you hadn't. The sun is barely painting the sky pink over the Pantanal wetlands, and already you can sense them gathering. It's that particular quality of silence that isn't actually silent. It's expectant, heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm, except instead of rain, you're about to be deluged with everyone else's problems. Your webbed feet twitch slightly in the mud. Just 5 more minutes, you think? 5 more minutes before you have to be the calmest mammal in South America. But even as you think it, you know it's impossible. You can practically feel the anxiety radiating from the toucan perched in the cecropia tree above you. He's been there since 4 in the morning, you're sure of it, waiting for you to wake up so he can discuss his complicated feelings about fruit availability this season. You are the world's largest rodent, weighing in at a respectable 146 pounds, and somehow that translates to being everyone's oversized therapy cushion. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras evolved to be this calm, or if it's a defense mechanism against being constantly surrounded by needy wildlife. You personally suspect it's the latter. The thing about being a capybara is that you never asked for this reputation. You just wanted to eat grass, swim a bit, maybe sun yourself on a nice rock. But somewhere along the evolutionary timeline, your species developed this unfortunate combination of traits: a naturally relaxed facial expression, a body temperature that runs slightly warm and comforting, and, most damning of all, an apparent inability to show visible annoyance. Your other eye opens reluctantly. Sure enough, there's already a small turtle making its way toward you, each step deliberate and heavy with purpose. You know that walk? That's the walk of someone who's been rehearsing a conversation all night, probably about shell insecurities again. Last week, it was whether the hexagonal patterns were symmetrical enough. The week before that, concerns about not being able to retract fully like those fancy box turtles. You shift slightly, hoping maybe the movement will discourage early morning therapy sessions. It doesn't. If anything, it seems to be a signal that the office is officially open. A butterfly lands on your nose, and you go cross-eyed trying to look at it. Even the insects want something from you. This one probably needs validation about its wing patterns or reassurance that its metamorphosis was worth the effort. The truly exhausting part is that you do care. Despite yourself, you actually do want the toucan to feel secure about fruit supplies, and you genuinely hope the turtle learns to love its shell. But caring is heavy. Each creature that seeks you out adds another small weight to your broad, supportive back, and you're starting to feel like Atlas, except instead of holding up the sky, you're holding up the entire rainforest's emotional well-being. You know that in approximately 12 minutes, your usual morning crowd will have assembled. The data is depressingly consistent. First comes the anxious agouti, who's convinced every rustle in the underbrush is a jaguar. Then the capuchin monkeys, with their complex social dynamics and their tendency to overshare about grooming politics. By mid-morning, even the caimans start showing up, which is particularly stressful because you're never quite sure if they're there for emotional support or considering you for breakfast. The ambiguity alone is enough to give you an ulcer if capybaras could get ulcers. Can capybaras get ulcers? You make a mental note to worry about this later. The toucan arrives first, as predicted. His beak catches the early morning light in a way that would be beautiful if you weren't so aware of the monologue about to emerge from it. He lands with a deliberate thump on the log beside you, clearly having practiced this entrance. "I've been thinking," he begins, and you suppress the urge to slip into the water. Once a toucan starts with, "I've been thinking," you're locked into at least a 45-minute discussion about the nature of existence as it relates to fruit seasonality. But before he can launch into his prepared speech, you hear the distinctive sound of a tapir moving through the undergrowth. Not running. Tapirs rarely run unless absolutely necessary, but moving with the kind of determined shuffle that suggests emotional urgency. Your heart sinks a little. The tapir has been going through something lately. Last week, it was an identity crisis about being called living fossils. The week before, existential dread about having a prehensile nose that everyone finds either adorable or weird, with no middle ground. The turtle you spotted earlier has also picked up speed, which for a turtle means it's now moving at the pace of cold honey instead of frozen molasses. You can see the determination in its ancient eyes. 3 creatures, all convinced their problems are the most pressing, all heading straight for you like you're some kind of emotional emergency room. This is the part where being a capybara gets complicated. In the wild, capybaras are indeed highly social animals, living in groups of 10 to 20 individuals. But nowhere in the scientific literature does it mention that this social nature would translate into becoming the Amazon's unpaid therapist. Zoologists still debate whether your species' calm demeanor is an evolutionary advantage or just collective exhaustion from centuries of being too nice to say no. The toucan gets there first, naturally. "So about the papaya situation," he starts, but the tapir has arrived and immediately interrupts with a sort of honking sigh that suggests its problems definitely take precedence over fruit anxiety. "Eugene," the tapir says to the toucan. Apparently, they're on a first-name basis now. Can't you see I'm having a crisis? My stripes are fading. Fading. What if I'm becoming just another brown mammal? What if I lose the only thing that makes me special? You want to point out that baby tapirs lose their stripes naturally as they mature, that it's completely normal, that adult tapirs are magnificent without stripes. But the toucan is already ruffling his feathers in indignation. Ernesto, we've talked about this. Your stripes are not your identity. Meanwhile, I'm facing actual scarcity. The papaya tree I've been monitoring for 3 weeks was raided by howler monkeys. Howler monkeys, they don't even appreciate the subtle sweetness. The turtle finally arrives, breathing heavily, which is concerning because you weren't aware turtles could breathe heavily. Sorry, it gasps, but this is urgent. I've been thinking about time. Oh no, not time. When the turtle starts thinking about time, you're in for philosophical discussions that could outlast its 150-year lifespan. Specifically, the turtle continues about how I experience it differently than everyone else. You all move so fast. By the time I've processed that something happened, it's already tomorrow for you. What if I'm living in the past? What if I'm always behind, always missing the present moment? Your brain, which is surprisingly complex for a rodent's, tries to juggle all 3 crisis situations simultaneously. The toucan wants validation about fruit territory. The tapir needs reassurance about physical changes. The turtle is having a temporal existential crisis. And you just wanted to eat some water hyacinths in peace. This is the curse of being semi-aquatic. You're accessible from both land and water, which doubles your consultation availability. At least fully terrestrial therapists only have to deal with land-based problems. You get swimmers too. Last month, a school of piranhas wanted to discuss their image problem. Do you know how stressful it is to provide group therapy to creatures that could theoretically skeletonize you in under 5 minutes? They were very polite about it, sure, but still, the 3 of them are now talking over each other, each convinced their issue deserves immediate attention. The toucan is creating a complex analogy between papaya availability and self-worth. The tapir has moved on to discussing whether it should start rolling in mud more often to create artificial stripes. The turtle is somehow now questioning whether time is even real or just a construct created by faster animals to make slower ones feel bad. You find yourself doing that thing where you nod at what seems like appropriate intervals while your mind drifts to your own concerns. Like whether the water level in your favorite soaking spot is dropping, or if that patch of grass you've been saving for a special occasion is still there, or why you can't just once, wake up without immediately becoming a free counseling service. But then you catch yourself. This is exactly the kind of thinking that would disappoint everyone. Capybaras don't have selfish thoughts. Capybaras are nature's Zen masters, remember? You're supposed to find joy in helping others, to radiate peace like some kind of semi-aquatic Buddha. The sun climbs higher, and with it, your stress levels. You've managed to navigate the toucan toward acceptance that papaya trees are meant to be shared. He's now creating a fruit-sharing schedule that nobody asked for, while simultaneously convincing the tapper that distinguished adults don't need stripes to be valuable. The turtle is still philosophizing about temporal perception, but at least it's doing so more quietly. This is what nobody understands about being perpetually chill. It's absolutely exhausting. Every muscle in your body wants to express something, frustration maybe, or just mild irritation, but you can't. You've become trapped in your own reputation. One time, years ago, you snapped at a marsh deer for stepping on your favorite water plant, and the entire wetland community talked about it for months. Did you hear? The capybara lost its temper. Maybe we've been wrong about them all along. Maybe they're just like the rest of us. The pressure to return to baseline calm after that incident was immense. Now you're stuck. Forever the Zen master. Forever approachable. Forever keeping your real feelings buried deeper than a caiman's nest. A hummingbird zips past your ear, hovers, then zips back. Oh good, you're awake. It chirps at a frequency that makes your molars ache. I need to discuss my nectar anxiety. What if I'm visiting flowers too frequently? What if the plants think I'm needy? But what if I don't visit enough and they give their nectar to someone else? You want to scream. Not a big scream. Capybaras aren't really built for dramatic vocalizations, but maybe a moderate squeak of frustration. Instead, you make a soft purring sound that everyone interprets as deep understanding. It's actually just your stomach rumbling because you haven't eaten breakfast yet. But the hummingbird takes it as encouragement and launches into a detailed analysis of its pollination patterns. The thing about being the world's largest rodent is that people expect you to have proportionally large patience. Like somehow your emotional capacity scaled up with your body size. But that's not how it works. Inside this 140-pound frame is the same anxious rodent brain that your guinea pig cousins have, just trapped in a body too large to hide under furniture when overwhelmed. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras' famous calm is adaptive behavior or simply resignation. You know the truth, it's performance art. Every day you wake up and put on the mask of serenity. You move slowly, not because you're naturally relaxed, but because quick movements might betray the constant state of low-grade panic you actually exist in. Are you even listening? The hummingbird demands, and you realize you've been staring blankly at a lily pad for who knows how long. Of course, you lie smoothly, having perfected the art of seeming engaged while your mind is elsewhere. Your relationship with flowers sounds very complex. This satisfies the hummingbird enough that it starts the whole story over from the beginning, which gives you time to notice that more animals are gathering. Word has gotten out that you're holding court, apparently. A family of coatis approaches from the left, their long noses twitching with barely contained emotional neediness. From the right, a giant ant-eater lumbers over, and you just know it's going to want to discuss its tongue insecurities again. The perpetual chill you're famous for requires constant maintenance. It's like being a method actor who can never break character. Daniel Day-Lewis got to stop being Lincoln eventually. You have to be a capybara 24/7, 365 days a year. No vacation days. No sick leave. No, sorry, the therapist is out sign to hang on a tree. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you just stopped. If you expressed even a fraction of the irritation you feel when the same caiman shows up every week to discuss its teeth-related self-esteem issues. If you told the toucan that maybe, just maybe, his fruit anxiety is really about control issues stemming from nest-related childhood trauma. If you admitted that you don't actually have answers, that you're just making soothing sounds while privately planning your grocery list. But you can't, because the entire ecosystem has apparently built itself around the assumption that you'll always be available, always be calm, always be ready to absorb everyone else's anxieties like some kind of emotional sponge. The responsibility is crushing. What if the wrong word from you sends the already neurotic agouti into a complete breakdown? What if your moment of honesty caused a mental health crisis that ripples through the entire food chain? A Boto dolphin pokes its pink head out of the water nearby. Great! Now the aquatic therapy sessions are starting too. The dolphin clicks something that sounds urgent, probably wants to discuss its complicated feelings about being pink in a world where most dolphins are gray. You've heard this one before, many times. Just a moment, you tell the dolphin, which is a lie because it's never just a moment. It's hours. It's your entire day. It's your life now. The crowd continues to grow. Each animal brings its own special brand of neediness, its own flavor of anxiety that somehow you're supposed to fix with your magical capybara presence. The pressure to maintain your calm exterior intensifies with each new arrival. You can feel your eye starting to twitch, but you quickly convert it into what everyone perceives as a wise, slow blink. The situation deteriorates rapidly when the first capuchin monkey arrives. These little primates have absolutely no concept of personal space, which you learnt the hard way when you first arrived in this part of the wetland. Within seconds, one of them is sitting on your head, picking through your fur for non-existent insects. Two more settle on your back like you're some kind of mobile sofa. A fourth drapes itself across your neck like the world's clingiest scarf. So anyway, the next monkey begins without preamble. I've been thinking about grooming hierarchies and whether I'm stuck in a toxic reciprocal relationship with my cousin. He only grooms me when he needs something, you know? The one on your head chimes in, "That's nothing." My whole troop has been gossiping about my fruit peeling technique. Apparently, I peel bananas wrong, whatever that means. You want to shake them off, to reclaim even an inch of your own body, but that would be considered hostile. Hostile capybaras don't exist in anyone's worldview. So you stand there, a living jungle gym, while more creatures treat your personal space like a public park. A bird lands on your back, right between two monkeys. Then another. Soon you're hosting what appears to be an impromptu interspecies mixer. The birds are discussing migration patterns with the monkeys, who are barely listening because they're too busy using your fur as stress relief fidget toys. Someone's tail is in your ear. You're not even sure whose tail. At this point, you've become less of an individual and more of a community space. This is the reality of being a capybara that no nature documentary covers. Yes, you're semi-aquatic. Yes, you're herbivorous. Yes, you're the world's largest rodent. But what they don't tell you is that your body temperature runs just warm enough to be comforting. Your fur is just dense enough to be grippable. And your back is just broad enough to accommodate multiple passengers. You're essentially a living, breathing therapy couch. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras' tolerance for other species climbing on them is a form of mutualism or just pure resignation. The scientists see birds eating ticks off your back and call it symbiotic. They don't see the hours of group therapy you're forced to moderate while tiny claws dig into your skin and tails whip across your face. "Excuse me," a new voice says from somewhere near your left hip. You look down to see a young agouti, eyes wide with that particular mix of anxiety and determination that means you're about to hear someone's entire life story. "I know you're busy, but I really need someone to talk to about my seed hoarding compulsions." Busy? You're not busy. You're furniture. Furniture isn't busy, it's just occupied. The dolphin from earlier has apparently decided not to wait its turn. It swims closer, clicking urgently. "Can we talk while you soak?" I promise I'll keep it brief. Nothing is ever brief. Brief is what other animals get to be. You're trapped in eternal long-form conversation. But you wade into the shallows anyway, because at least in the water, some of the monkeys might dismount. They don't. If anything, they cling tighter, complaining about the moisture while refusing to let go. "So about my pinkness," the dolphin begins, and you resign yourself to another discussion about cetacean color theory while semi-submerged and covered in primates. The water is supposed to be your refuge. Capybaras can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes, a fact you've tested extensively while hiding from particularly needy therapy seekers. But even underwater, you're not safe. Fish swim up to make eye contact. Turtles paddle over to float companionably beside you. Once, an anaconda tried to discuss its body image issues while partially coiled around your leg, which was absolutely the most stressful therapy session you've ever conducted. Your body has become community property. Every surface is fair game for sitting, standing, or leaning. Your broad nose, perfect for butterfly landing. Your webbed feet, ideal for small frogs to huddle between. Your ears, convenient perches for insects who want to whisper their problems directly into your auditory canals. "Are you comfortable?" asks one of the monkeys, shifting position on your spine. "Are you comfortable?" The question is so absurd, you almost laugh. Or you would if capybaras could laugh. Instead, you make that soft, purring sound again. which everyone mistakes for contentment when it's actually barely suppressed frustration. The truth is, you haven't been comfortable in years. Not since word got out that you're approachable. Your body hasn't belonged to you since that first bird decided your head was a perfect perch and you were too polite to shake it off. Now you're trapped in a reputation that requires you to be constantly available for physical comfort as well as emotional support. Sometimes, in your darkest moments, usually around 3 in the morning, when even the nocturnal creatures are briefly quiet, you fantasize about boundaries. Imagine saying, "Actually, I'd prefer if you didn't sit on me while discussing your problems." Picture yourself walking away mid-conversation. Dream about a sign that says, "The therapist is in, but the furniture is closed." But then sunrise comes, and with it, the endless stream of creatures who need somewhere soft to sit while they work through their issues. And you stand there, solid and dependable, while your personal space becomes everyone else's public therapy forum. The morning drags on, and somewhere between the dolphin's third, color-related metaphor and a new monkey's arrival, this one with separation anxiety from its favorite branch, a troubling thought surfaces in your mind. What if you're not actually calm at all? What if what everyone perceives as Zen-like tranquility is just complete and utter exhaustion masquerading as wisdom? You consider this while a small bird uses your ear as a launching pad. The famous capybara calm, studied by scientists, celebrated by nature lovers, hashtagged into oblivion on social media, might be nothing more than being too tired to react to anything anymore. It's a thought that makes your stomach churn, or maybe that's just hunger. When did you last eat? Time becomes meaningless when you're busy being everyone's emotional support system. You're so naturally peaceful, the agouti is saying, apparently unaware that your left eye has been twitching for the past 5 minutes. I wish I could be like you. Nothing bothers you at all. Nothing bothers you? You're bothered by everything. You're bothered by the monkey currently using your tail as a stress toy. You're bothered by the fact that you can't remember what your own thoughts sound like without someone else's anxiety layered on top. You're bothered by the gnawing suspicion that you're the world's greatest fraud. The scientific name for capybaras is Hydrochoerus hydrochaeris, which literally means water pig. Even your scientific classification sounds like someone who's given up. And maybe that's what you are. Not a Zen master, just a large, semi-aquatic mammal who's too defeated to protest being used as community furniture. Zoologists still debate whether your species' docile nature is evolutionary brilliance or just collective burnout from centuries of being too large to hide and too slow to run. You're starting to suspect it's the latter. Every capybara you've ever met has the same 1,000-yard stare that you're pretty sure you've developed. It's not inner peace. It's dissociation. Tell me, the dolphin clicks, swimming a tight circle around you. Do you think my pink coloration makes me seem less intelligent? I feel like the grey dolphins take me less seriously. You want to point out that you're a brown rodent standing in muddy water while covered in various species, like some kind of mammalian apartment complex, and yet everyone takes your opinion seriously. Too seriously. But instead, you make what you hope sounds like a thoughtful noise, while privately wondering if you've ever had an authentic emotion in your life. The imposter syndrome hits harder when a young capybara waddles up to your group. You recognize the look immediately, wide-eyed, optimistic, not yet beaten down by the weight of being everyone's therapist. The youngster watches you with something approaching awe, and your heart sinks. "Wow," the young capybara breathes. "You're really doing it. You're really as calm as everyone says. How do you manage it? How do you explain that you don't manage it? That you're not calm, you're just experiencing a kind of sustained emotional paralysis? That what looks like patience is actually your soul leaving your body while another toucan explains its complicated relationship with figs? Practice, you lie, because what else can you say? Just practice." The youngster nods earnestly and settles in to watch you work, adding another layer to your performance anxiety. Now, you're not just pretending to be calm for your clients, you're also modeling behavior for the next generation of capybara therapists. The pressure compounds like sediment at a river bottom, building and building until you can barely breathe under the weight of it. A parrot lands on your head, displacing the monkey who complains loudly but relocates to your hip. "I've been thinking about mimicry," the parrot announces. Like, am I ever saying my own thoughts? Or am I just repeating what I've heard? How do I know which words are mine? The irony is not lost on you. Here's a bird having an existential crisis about authenticity while perched on the head of the Amazon's greatest faker. You want to tell the parrot that you understand completely, that you've been mimicking calm for so long, you've forgotten what your genuine emotional state even feels like. But that would break character, and breaking character is not an option when you're holding up the mental health of an entire ecosystem. Sometimes you catch your reflection in the still water and don't recognize yourself. Is that really what contentment looks like? Or have you just perfected the art of looking dead inside? The neutral expression that everyone finds so comforting might just be what happens when a face forgets how to show real emotion. You never judge, the neck monkey is saying, grooming your fur with unnecessary vigor. That's what I love about you. Zero judgment. It's not zero judgment. It's zero energy left to form judgments. There's a difference, but explaining it would require caring, and caring would require feeling, and feeling would require admitting that you're not the Zen master everyone needs you to be. The whole system would collapse. The toucan would have no one to validate its fruit anxieties. The tapir would spiral about its stripes. The turtle would be stuck in temporal loops with no one to ground it. So you stand there, the world's largest and most fraudulent rodent, wondering if any capybara in history has ever actually been as calm as you pretend to be. or if you're all just very tired animals who've collectively agreed to keep up the act, because the alternative, admitting you're just as anxious and overwhelmed as everyone else, is too terrifying to contemplate. The afternoon heat intensifies, and you're just starting to think the crowd might thin out when you spot a familiar shape gliding through the water. Your muscles tense involuntarily, a reaction that would surprise anyone who believes in your legendary calm. The caiman approaches with what it probably thinks is a friendly smile, but what you recognize as several dozen teeth barely contained by reptilian lips. "Hey there," the caiman says, trying for casual, but achieving what can only be described as casually terrifying. "Mind if we talk?" Mind? Your mind is racing through escape routes, calculating the distance to the nearest bank, the density of vegetation you could disappear into, the likelihood of outrunning something that's basically a living torpedo with emotional issues. But your reputation precedes you, and the various creatures still using you as furniture are watching. The young capybara from earlier is taking mental notes on how to handle predator-prey therapy dynamics. "Of course not," you hear yourself say, while internally screaming. "What's on your mind?" The caiman settles into the shallows nearby, close enough for conversation, but thankfully not close enough for immediate consumption. You notice several of the smaller animals have mysteriously remembered urgent appointments elsewhere. The monkeys, however, stay put, apparently deciding that being attached to you is safer than making any sudden moves. "It's about my mother," the caiman begins, and you swallow hard. Even predators have childhood trauma, apparently. "She always said I was too sensitive for a caiman. Stop apologizing to your food," she'd tell me. "Ambush predators don't have feelings." You nod sympathetically while your brain runs rapid calculations. Adult caimans can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour in short bursts. Capybaras max out at about 22 miles per hour, and that's on land, when you're not covered in therapeutic passengers. In water, the math gets even worse. But you can't exactly say, "That's fascinating, but I need to maintain a 12-foot safety buffer while we discuss your emotional damage." Zoologists still debate whether predator-prey relationships can include therapeutic elements. You're living proof that they can, though living feels optimistic when you're counseling something that could theoretically eat you. The stress of maintaining calm while your evolutionary alarm bells are ringing is giving you what you're pretty sure is a tension headache, though capybaras aren't supposed to get those either. "She just didn't understand," the caiman continues, actual tears forming in its reptilian eyes. "I don't enjoy hunting, the thrill other caimans talk about. I've never felt it. Do you know what it's like to be bad at being what you are? Do you know what it's like?" You almost laugh at the cosmic joke of it all. You're a capybara who's bad at being calm, listening to a caiman who's bad at being predatory, while everyone assumes you're both perfectly comfortable with this arrangement. The monkey on your neck is stress grooming your fur so hard you're going to have a bald spot. "I tried to talk to the other caimans about it," the predator continues, inching slightly closer in what it probably thinks is a subtle way. "But they just make jokes." Carmelo's gone soft, they say. Carmelo apologizes to fish before eating them. And yes, okay, I do sometimes apologize, but isn't that just basic courtesy? You make an understanding sound while calculating that the caiman, Carmelo, apparently, has closed the distance by about 18 inches. Your fight or flight response, which you've spent years suppressing in the name of being approachable, is screaming at volumes that could shatter glass. But you can't flight, and you certainly can't fight, so you do what you always do: freeze and pretend it's wisdom. The dolphin from earlier pops up nearby, takes one look at the scene, and immediately submerges again with what sounds like the cetacean equivalent of, "No, smart dolphin." You wish you could follow, but you're trapped by your own reputation and the weight of 3 monkeys who've somehow gotten heavier as their anxiety about the caiman increases. Sometimes I wonder if I should just become vegetarian, Carmelo muses. And now you're genuinely concerned because a vegetarian caiman is a starving caiman, and starving predators make impulsive decisions. But then I think about the disappointment in my family's eyes. Well, Uncle Jorge, lost one to a fishing net. This is the part of being everyone's therapist that the feel-good stories miss. It's not all gentle birds and harmless mammals with relatable anxieties. Sometimes you have to provide emotional support to something that triggers every survival instinct your ancestors baked into your DNA over millions of years. Your heartbeat is so loud, you're sure everyone can hear it, but you have to pretend it's just the rhythm of deep, therapeutic listening. Have you considered you manage voice surprisingly steady, that being sensitive might actually make you a more efficient predator? Empathy could help you understand prey patterns better. It's psychological nonsense, but Carmelo's eyes light up like you've just solved his existential crisis. I never thought of it that way. Emotional intelligence as a hunting strategy. Oh, this changes everything. I need to go journal about this. And just like that, the caiman is swimming away, apparently inspired to go write poetry about ethical consumption or something equally unlikely for an apex predator. The monkeys collectively exhale. Your legs shake slightly, but you lock your knees and maintain the facade. Wow, the young capybara says, eyes wide with misplaced admiration. You didn't even flinch. How do you stay so calm with predators? You want to explain that you did flinch internally, repeatedly, with every fiber of your being. That your calm is just paralysis dressed up as bravery. That you're pretty sure you've aged 5 years in the last 20 minutes. Instead, you offer what you hope looks like a wise smile. Everyone needs understanding, you say, which is true, but also the kind of empty platitude that makes you die a little inside. As the sun reaches its peak, you notice a sloth in the cecropia tree above, the same tree the toucan vacated hours ago after his fruit crisis was resolved. The sloth is doing what sloths do best: absolutely nothing. Moving at a pace that makes glaciers look hasty, it reaches for a leaf with the kind of deliberate slowness that would be called meditation if you did it, but for the sloth, it's just Tuesday. The envy hits you like a fallen branch. There it hangs, Equally slow, equally calm looking, but nobody's lined up beneath that tree waiting to discuss their feelings. No one expects the sloth to solve their problems. The sloth gets to be slow without being wise. It gets to be still without being stable. It gets to exist without being everyone's emotional anchor. Must be nice, you mutter under your breath, but the agouti at your feet thinks you're making a therapeutic observation. You're right, the agouti nods enthusiastically. It must be nice to accept yourself as you are. I should try that with my hoarding. You watch the sloth complete what might generously be called a movement. Its arm has advanced perhaps 3 inches toward the leaf it's been reaching for since dawn. At this rate, it'll achieve its goal sometime next Thursday. But here's the thing. Nobody's judging the sloth's productivity. Nobody's asking why it takes so long to do simple tasks. The sloth isn't anyone's life coach or grief counselor or anxiety manager. It's just a slow mammal living its slow life. The inequality of it all makes your eye twitch again. You and the sloth share similar metabolic rates, similar peaceful demeanors, similar herbivorous diets. But somewhere along the line, capybaras got designated as healing, while sloths got labeled as sleepy. It's the world's most unfair casting call. Zoologists still debate whether sloths are actually calm or just operating on a different temporal frequency from the rest of us. But nobody cares about the debate because sloths aren't expected to be role models. They can have bad days. They can be grumpy. That one time, a sloth fell out of a tree and made an angry sound. Everyone thought it was adorable. When you made one frustrated grunt last month, 3 different species asked if you were okay, and a toucan suggested you might need therapy yourself. You know what I admire about you, the neck monkey says, apparently unaware it's been using your vertebrae as a xylophone for the past hour. You're slow but purposeful. Not like those sloths, they're just lazy. Lazy. The sloth gets to be lazy. You have to be deliberately mindful, or consciously present, or whatever new age nonsense the Morning Bird Choir has been tweeting about. Your slowness comes with expectations. The sloth's slowness comes with a free pass to do nothing. An anaconda slides by in the water and everyone gives it respectful distance. Another creature that gets to just be what it is. Sure, the anaconda has that whole deadly predator thing going for it, but at least it's not expected to be anyone's emotional support snake. It shows up, does snake things, leaves. Simple. No one's asking the anaconda to validate their life choices or listen to their childhood trauma. Even the piranhas have it better. They swim in schools, which means group therapy is built into their social structure. They can work out their issues collectively without one designated fish having to absorb everyone else's problems. But capybaras, you're expected to be solitary therapy islands, even when you're in a group. Are you looking at that sloth? The young capybara asks, following your gaze. I heard they only defecate once a week. That must be so freeing, not having daily biological needs interrupting your peace. You want to scream that peace isn't the absence of biological functions. It's the absence of constant emotional labor. But that would shatter the illusion, and you've invested too much in this performance to break character now. Instead, you make a non-committal sound that could mean anything from "how interesting" to "please leave me alone to contemplate my life choices." The sloth, blissfully unaware of your existential crisis, has now successfully grabbed the leaf. It's chewing with the kind of meditative focus that would have 17 different animals asking you what profound thoughts you're having if you did it. But the sloth? It's just eating. No deeper meaning. No life lessons. No metaphorical significance that anxious toucans can project their fruit-related fears onto. You think about other animals who've somehow avoided the therapeutic industrial complex. Anteaters are slow and deliberate, but nobody expects them to be wise, just weird. Manatees float around like gray potatoes, but they're gentle, not healing. Even giant tortoises, literal symbols of longevity and patience, don't have to conduct therapy sessions. They just exist, ancient and unbothered, while you're out here being the Amazon's unpaid counselor. I've been thinking, the tapir from this morning has returned, apparently not satisfied with your earlier stripe-related pep talk. Maybe I should try being more like you, just accepting things as they are. But you don't accept things as they are. You tolerate things as they are, while internally composing strongly worded letters to whoever decided capybaras should be nature's therapists. The sloth has finished its leaf and is now beginning the 3-hour process of reaching for another one. No tapir is asking it for acceptance advice. No anxious bird is projecting meaning onto its movements. The comparison game is dangerous, you know. But when you're standing in muddy water, covered in needy animals, providing free therapy to creatures who could afford to pay if animal currency existed, while a sloth gets to just hang there, being professionally slow without any expectations, well, the envy becomes hard to ignore. The afternoon wears on, and between the monkey's relationship drama and a new iguana's scale-shedding insecurities, your mind keeps drifting to the water level. It's lower than last week. Definitely lower. The edges of your favorite soaking spot are showing more mud than usual, and that patch of water lilies you've been monitoring is already looking stressed. The dry season is coming early this year, but nobody's asking about your water anxieties. So I said to her, maybe if you groomed me more often, I'd share my figs. The monkey on your back is explaining to the monkey on your neck, using your spine as their couple's therapy couch. And she said grooming should be unconditional. But is anything really unconditional? You want to point out that your therapy services are apparently unconditional, but you're too busy calculating water recession rates. If the level drops at its current pace, your main pool will be reduced to a muddy puddle within 3 weeks. Capybaras can survive without swimming, technically, but it's like asking a fish to survive in a very humid room. Possible, but deeply uncomfortable. A new bird lands on your head, displacing the parrot who's been there so long you'd forgotten about it. "I need advice about nest placement," the bird announces. Is it better to build high for safety or low for convenience? What you want to say is, I need advice about whether I should start scouting alternative water sources now or wait until this pool completely dries up. But that's not how this works. You're the advisor, not the advised. The helper, not the helped. Your problems are supposed to be solved already. That's why everyone comes to you. The grass beneath your feet feels different, crunchier. Not the soft, water-fed vegetation you're used to, but the kind that's already preparing for drought. Your molars, perfectly designed for grinding aquatic plants, are going to have a tough time with the dry season foliage. But sure, let's discuss nest architecture while your food supply literally withers. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras experience seasonal anxiety or if their migration patterns are purely instinctual. You can confirm it's anxiety. Deep, gnawing worry about water access, food quality, and whether the good mud wallows will turn into concrete hard depressions that offer no relief from the heat. Are you okay? The young capybara asks, and for a moment, your heart lifts. Finally, someone's noticed. You seem extra peaceful today, like even more zen than usual. Teach me your ways. The disappointment is crushing. Even when someone asks if you're okay, they're not really asking. They're projecting their own interpretation onto your increasingly desperate internal state. Your extra peaceful demeanor is actually barely contained panic about ecosystem collapse. But sure, let's call it zen. The dolphin surfaces again, clicking excitedly. I've been thinking about what you said earlier about being pink, and I realized, oh, the water does seem lower, doesn't it? Anyway, as I was saying about color fit, the eerie, so close. The dolphin noticed the water level for exactly 1 second before returning to its own concerns. This is your life, being a sounding board for everyone else's problems while your own anxieties multiply like algae in stagnant water. You try to remember the last time someone asked about your well-being and actually waited for an answer. The last time you got to express worry about something without immediately pivoting to comfort someone else. The last time your needs were even acknowledged, let alone addressed. The memory refuses to surface, possibly because it doesn't exist. I've been having dreams about flying, the agouti shares, apparently done with its hoarding discussion. What do you think that means? What you think is that you've been having dreams about rain. Torrential, pool-filling, grass-feeding rain. But dream analysis is just another service you provide. So you make some sounds about aspiration and freedom while mentally mapping every water source within a 3-mile radius. The mud between your toes is the wrong consistency. Too thick, too warm. Not the cool, silky mud that soothes your skin and regulates your temperature. Soon it'll be dust, and your webbed feet, perfectly evolved for navigating wetlands, will crack and ache on the hard ground. But yes, let's definitely prioritize the agouti's flying dreams. A heron stalks by, all legs and judgment. The fish are deeper now, it complains to you. I have to wade further out. My feathers get so wet. You stare at the heron. It's literally complaining about water accessibility to a semi-aquatic mammal, while standing on legs that could carry it to any water source in the regions. The heron can fly to better fishing spots. You have to walk, hope, and worry. But pointing this out would be un-capybara-like, so you nod sympathetically while your stomach churns with drought dread. Have you thought about adapting your fishing technique, you suggest? While what you really want to ask is whether the heron has seen any stable water sources during its flights. But that would be making the conversation about you, and capybaras don't do that. The young capybara is taking notes again, probably writing, shows concern for others even during environmental challenges, or some other misinterpretation of your desperate attempt to gather information about water locations through indirect questioning. Your anxiety compounds, not just about the dry season, but about how invisible your own needs have become. You're like a mirror that everyone sees their own reflection in, never noticing the glass itself is cracked and desperately needs maintenance. The ecosystem depends on you being stable, but what happens when your foundation, literal water, disappears? You're so lucky, the tapir says, having returned for its third session today. You don't seem to worry about anything. The irony could fill the missing water in your pools. You worry about everything. You worry about water levels and food sources, and whether your calm facade will crack before the rains return. You worry about what happens when the therapy pool dries up and you have to relocate, leaving all these anxious animals without their emotional support, capybara. You worry that you've become so good at hiding your own needs that they've become invisible even to yourself. But you just nod and make that soft sound everyone finds so comforting, while the water level drops another imperceptible inch and your anxiety rises proportionally. The late afternoon brings a new wave of visitors, and with them, a mosquito problem. They're everywhere, buzzing around your ears, landing on your nose, treating your body like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Every instinct screams at you to shake, to roll in the mud, to submerge completely and escape the tiny vampires. But you can't, because the monkeys are mid-argument about banana distribution ethics, and any sudden movement would be interpreted as taking sides. I'm just saying, the neck monkey continues, oblivious to the cloud of insects around your head, possession is 9/10 of the law. If I get to the banana first, a mosquito lands directly on your eyeball. Your eyeball. The urge to blink aggressively, to shake your head, to express even the mildest displeasure is overwhelming. But you've learned that capybaras don't get to have normal reactions. One time, you sneezed during a toucan's emotional breakdown, and it took 20 minutes to convince everyone you weren't making a passive-aggressive statement about their problems. You seem tense, the young capybara observes, and your hope flares again. Maybe someone finally sees. Is this a teaching moment? Are you demonstrating how to maintain composure during minor irritations? You're not demonstrating anything. You're dying. Death by 1,000 mosquito bites while providing free therapy to monkeys who won't shut up about fruit ownership. But admitting this would shatter the illusion, and the illusion is all you have left. The mosquito on your eyeball is joined by a friend. You've become a living metaphor for your own existence, unable to blink away even the smallest irritations because everyone's watching, always watching, waiting for you to prove you're just as flawed as they are. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras have fewer nerve endings or just higher pain tolerance. You can definitively say it's neither. You feel everything. Every bite, every scratch, every tiny irritation that you're not allowed to acknowledge because calm animals don't get bothered by trivial things. But these aren't trivial when they're constant, when they layer upon each other like sediment until you're buried under the weight of unacknowledged discomfort. Anyway, the hip monkey jumps in. I think we should implement a banana rotation system. Are you okay? You're making a face. You're making a face because 17 mosquitoes are currently treating your snout like a juice bar. But you quickly rearrange your features into what you hope passes for thoughtful concentration. Just processing your innovative ideas about resource distribution. The truth is, you haven't been allowed to make a genuine face in years. Every expression is carefully curated to project serenity. You can't scowl when the sun's too bright. You can't grimace when you step on something sharp. You can't even do that nose wrinkle thing when something smells bad because someone might think you're judging them. A howler monkey swings down from a nearby tree, lands with unnecessary force on your back, displacing two smaller monkeys who complain loudly, and immediately launches into its issue. I think I'm losing my voice. Not literally, I can still howl, but metaphorically. Like, what if my howls don't mean anything anymore? What if your calm doesn't mean anything anymore? What if it never did? What if you're just a large rodent who's forgotten how to react normally to normal stimuli? But you can't explore these thoughts because the howler needs validation about its existential howling crisis, and expressing your own frustration would make you seem, what's the word everyone uses? Uncentered. The mosquitoes have formed a committee on your left ear. You can feel them discussing the best entry points, probably writing tiny mosquito dissertations about optimal blood extraction from stressed capybaras. Your ear flicks involuntarily, just once, just a tiny movement, and everyone notices. Did you just... The agouti starts. Natural reflex, you say quickly. Even the calmest water can ripple. This seems to satisfy them. Everything has to be a metaphor. You can't just flick your ear because bugs are annoying. It has to mean something deeper. You're trapped in a prison of symbolism where every natural reaction needs a philosophical justification. I've been thinking about authenticity, a new voice pipes up. It's a margay, one of those small wildcats that usually keeps to itself. Great! Even the introverts are seeking you out now. Like, how do we know when we're being real versus performing what others expect? The question hits too close to home. You're performing right now, pretending the mosquito buffet happening on your body is a minor inconvenience rather than a form of torture. You're performing calm while your skin crawls with irritation. You're performing wisdom while wanting to scream that sometimes things just suck, and that's okay. But you can't say any of this because capybaras who express negative emotions cease to be capybaras in everyone's eyes. You become just another anxious animal, and then who would everyone turn to? Who would absorb their worries if you admitted to having your own? Authenticity, you begin, trying not to think about the mosquito currently exploring your nostril, is about being true to yourself while still being kind to others. It's the kind of empty wisdom that means nothing but sounds profound. The Margay nods like you've unlocked the secrets of the universe, while you secretly fantasize about rolling in mud so thick no mosquito could penetrate it, thrashing around like a normal animal, expressing normal irritation at normal annoyances. The burden of being eternally chill is that you never get to be anything else. Not frustrated, not annoyed, not even mildly inconvenienced. You exist in a constant state of performed tranquility where even your discomfort has to be dressed up as a teaching moment. As the sun begins its descent, painting the wetlands in shades of gold that would be beautiful if you weren't so exhausted, your mind drifts to a fantasy you've been nurturing for months. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of anxious toucans and needy monkeys, there must be a pond. A remote, hidden pond where nobody knows about capybara therapy, where you could just float without someone analyzing what your floating means for their personal growth. The fantasy is so vivid, you can almost taste the clean water. No one would know you there. You'd just be another large rodent doing large rodent things. Maybe you'd meet some local fish who'd simply swim around you without asking about their scale patterns. Perhaps a few birds who'd perch nearby without needing validation about their singing voices. Just creatures existing near each other without the exhausting expectation of emotional labor. "You're extra quiet today," the howler monkey observes, still perched on your back like it's paying rent. Is this one of those profound silences where you're downloading wisdom from the universe? You're not downloading anything. You're uploading your resignation letter to the universe, but it keeps getting marked as spam. Your silence isn't profound. It's the sound of someone who's run out of comforting noises to make. But saying that would cause what the monkeys call a vibe shift, and maintaining the vibe is apparently your full-time job. The emotional exhaustion has taken on a physical quality. Your legs feel heavier than they should, like you're walking through syrup instead of shallow water. Your eyelids droop not from sleepiness, but from the weight of keeping them open and present for everyone else's problems. Even your fur feels tired, hanging limper than usual, though the monkeys interpret this as being extra relaxed and try to emulate it. Zoologists still debate whether emotional labor can cause physical fatigue in animals or if it's purely a human phenomenon. You're here to confirm that it absolutely can. Every you've offered, every understanding nod, every patient pause while someone works through their issues, they all extract a tiny piece of your life force. You're not aging in capybara years anymore. You're aging in therapist years, which everyone knows are like dog years, but worse. I've been thinking about starting a support group, the agouti announces, and your heart sinks further. For animals with anxiety, you could lead it. The idea of formal therapy sessions, of scheduled emotional labor, of having official hours where you're expected to absorb even more problems. It makes you want to swim to the bottom of the deepest pool and just stay there. But you make an encouraging sound because that's what's expected, while internally you're mapping river systems, calculating how far you'd have to travel to find a place where nobody's heard of you. In your fantasy pond, you develop a reputation for being standoffish, unfriendly even. The local animals whisper about the weird capybara who just eats grass and minds its own business. Don't bother talking to them, they'd warn newcomers. They're not very social. The thought fills you with a joy so intense it's almost painful. That's such a wonderful idea, you hear yourself saying to the agouti. Community support is so important. But what about your support? Where's your community? You're surrounded by creatures constantly, but loneliness wraps around you like morning mist. You know everything about everyone. The toucan's fruit anxieties, the turtle's temporal fears, the dolphin's color complex, but who knows that you prefer water lettuce to regular grass? Who's noticed that you favor your left side when walking because your right hip gets stiff in humid weather? The Margay from earlier returns, apparently having thought more about authenticity. I realize something, it says, settling way too close for comfort. You're so authentic that you make the rest of us feel safe to be vulnerable. If only the Margay knew that your authenticity is the least authentic thing about you, that every moment of calm is calculated, every wise pause is just you buying time to think of something therapeutic to say. Your method acting so hard, you've forgotten who you were before the role. A bat flies overhead, probably heading to its own therapy session with some nocturnal creature who specializes in sonar-related anxiety. Even the night shift has therapists. The emotional support industrial complex never sleeps. And neither do you anymore. Not really. Even in dreams, you're counseling anxious animals. Last night, you dreamed about a worried anaconda who thought it was too long, and you woke up exhausted from dream therapy. We should make this official, the neck monkey suggests. Like, set up a schedule. Capybara counseling, Mondays through Fridays, sunrise to sunset. The panic that shoots through you is immediate and electric. A schedule would make it real, official, inescapable. Right now, you can at least pretend this is temporary, that one day the animals will work through their issues and won't need you anymore. But a formal practice, that's acknowledging this is your life forever. Let me think about that, you manage, which everyone interprets as wise consideration rather than barely contained horror. Your fantasy pond beckons stronger now. In your mind, it's always the perfect temperature, with exactly the right depth for floating without effort. The grass is tender and plentiful. There are flat rocks for sunning that nobody else claims. Most importantly, there's silence. Not the expectant silence that demands you fill it with wisdom, but actual, peaceful silence where thoughts can exist without being shared. Sometimes you wonder if you could just leave tonight, slip away while everyone's distracted by their own problems. By the time they noticed, you'd be 3 river systems away, establishing yourself as the unfriendly capybara who doesn't make eye contact and definitely doesn't want to hear about your childhood. But then you look at the young capybara, still watching you with those admiring eyes, still taking notes on how to be what everyone needs, and you know you can't. Someone has to prepare them for what's coming. Someone has to be here when the toucan has its next fruit crisis. Someone has to nod understandingly while the turtle contemplates time. That someone just happens to be you, whether you signed up for it or not. The evening deepens, and as a fruit bat argues with the margay about whether nocturnal anxiety is worse than diurnal anxiety, your mind wanders to a different fantasy. Not the lonely pond this time, but something even more impossible. A support group for support animals. A place where you could walk in and say, "Hi, I'm a capybara, and I'm tired of being everyone's therapist." And other capybaras would nod knowingly and respond, "Hi, capybara." You imagine it so clearly. A circle of your own kind, all with the same 1,000-yard stare, all carrying the same invisible weight of everyone else's problems. No one would judge when someone admitted they'd fantasized about biting the next monkey who used them as furniture. There would be understanding nods when someone confessed to faking their calm demeanor for so long they'd forgotten what genuine peace felt like. "Are you visualizing something?" the young capybara asks, because apparently even your fantasy time isn't private. You have that look, my mentor says, means you're accessing higher wisdom. You're not accessing anything higher. You're imagining a basement somewhere. Do capybaras have basements? Let's say they do, where capybaras meet weekly to complain about being emotional support animals. There's probably stale grass and lukewarm water, but nobody cares because for 1 hour a week, they get to be honest. In your support group fantasy, there's a capybara named Sandra who finally snapped and told a toucan that maybe its fruit anxiety was really about control issues. The group doesn't judge Sandra. They applaud. There's another one, Felipe, who's developed a twitch from suppressing his annoyance for 3 straight years. The group suggests coping mechanisms that don't involve absorbing everyone's trauma like an emotional sponge. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras can experience collective trauma or if their social bonds are purely practical. You could write a dissertation on capybara collective trauma. Every one of your species you've ever met has the same look. The look of someone who's been designated the stable friend in every relationship and can never, ever show weakness. "I've been thinking," the neck monkey interrupts your fantasy, "what if we created a certification program? Like, you could train other animals to be as zen as you. Spread the calm around." The idea of creating more therapists, of spreading this burden to other innocent animals, makes your stomach turn. But then again, maybe that's not the worst idea. If every species had their own designated therapist, maybe you could get a day off. Maybe the sloths could handle the really slow-moving anxiety cases. Let them see how exhausting it is to be eternally patient. In the support group, you imagine there would be a capybara named Miguel who specializes in predator therapy. The group would gasp when he describes counseling jaguars through their identity crises. "How do you stay calm?" they'd ask, and Miguel would laugh bitterly and say, "I don't. I just freeze and hope they interpret it as wisdom." There'd be young capybaras too, fresh-faced and optimistic, still believing they're making a difference. The older ones would exchange knowing looks over their heads, remembering when they too thought being everyone's emotional support was a calling rather than a life sentence. "Give it 6 months," they'd whisper. "The toucan anxiety alone will break you." "You know what would be amazing?" the agouti chimes in, apparently done planning its anxiety support group. "If we could clone you, like have a capybara in every pond. Imagine the global healing." You imagine it, all right? Thousands of capybaras, all trapped in the same cycle of endless emotional labor, all fantasizing about the same escape pond, all developing the same eye twitch from suppressed frustration. It's not healing, it's an epidemic of enforced tranquility. The support group in your mind has a strict no-touching policy. No one sits on anyone. No one uses anyone else's furniture. The very thought makes you almost weep with longing. Just capybaras sitting at respectful distances, complaining about how everyone assumes their size correlates with their emotional capacity. "We should write a book," the howler monkey suggests. "The Capybara Way, ancient wisdom for modern anxiety." You could share your secrets. Your secrets? Your secret is that you're one fruit crisis away from swimming to the ocean and trying your luck as a marine mammal. Your secret is that you've named your eye twitch Gerald and consider it your only authentic form of self-expression. Your secret is that you're not wise, you're just too tired to be anything else. In the support group, someone would understand this. They'd have their own eye twitch, probably named something like Fernando or Beatrice. They'd share horror stories about the time 3 different species tried to process their trauma simultaneously while sitting on them. They'd laugh about the absurdity of being nature's designated therapy couch, but it would be the kind of laughter that's dangerously close to crying. "I think," you say carefully, because the monkeys are waiting for your response about the book, "that wisdom can't be captured in words." This satisfies them because mystical non-answers always do. But in your support group, someone would call you out. "That's exactly what we're talking about," they'd say. "The meaningless platitudes, the fake profundity. When did we become fortune cookies with fur? The fantasy feels so real you can almost smell the communal frustration, taste the shared exhaustion. But then the margay stretches, accidentally clawing your side, and reality crashes back. There is no support group. There's no understanding circle of equally burdened capybaras. There's just you, alone in a crowd, carrying everyone's emotions while your own remain unspoken. "Hey," the young capybara says quietly, and for a moment you think maybe they've figured it out. Maybe they see through the act. "When I grow up, I want to be exactly like you, completely at peace with everything." The irony is suffocating. They want to be like you, not knowing that being you means never being at peace with anything, especially yourself. But you nod and make that sound everyone finds so reassuring, while in your mind, the support group fantasy fades like mist at sunrise, leaving only the familiar weight of being everyone's rock while slowly eroding inside. Night fully settles over the wetlands, and with most of the diurnal animals finally retreating, you're left with the nocturnal crowd and your own thoughts. The thought that's been lurking at the edges of your consciousness all day finally surfaces. What if you weren't meant for this? What if, in some cosmic mix-up, you were supposed to just be a large rodent who eats grass and occasionally swims, but somewhere along the line, you got miscategorized as a therapist? The thought is simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Your entire identity has become wrapped up in being available for others. Who would you be if you weren't the emotional support capybara? Just another herbivore processing vegetation into fertilizer? The simplicity of it makes you want to weep. A kinkajou drops from a branch, landing with practiced silence near your ear. "I've been thinking about my honey addiction," it whispers, because apparently night therapy runs on whisper mode. Like, is it actually an addiction? Or is it just that honey is really good? What you want to say is, "I've been thinking about grass." Just grass. The taste of it, the way it feels between my teeth, how satisfying it is to crop a perfect mouthful from the riverbank. Remember when that was enough? When eating grass didn't have to be a meditation demonstration, but instead you make a thoughtful sound and let the kinkajou continue its honey-related self-analysis while you sink deeper into your existential spiral. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras have the cognitive capacity for existential doubt or if their behavior is purely instinctual. You're here as living proof that capybaras can indeed question their purpose, their choices, and why they didn't just evolve to be less approachable, maybe with spines, or a smell that repels other species. Even porcupines get more personal space than you do. The young capybara has settled nearby for the night, still watching you like you're about to dispense some midnight wisdom. You remember being that age before the weight of everyone's expectations settled on your shoulders like a permanent yoke. You just wanted to eat interesting plants and float in cool water. When did that become insufficient? When did existing stop being enough? Do you think, the kinkajou continues, that my honey-seeking is really about trying to fill an emotional void? Like maybe I had absent parents or something? Your parents were present. Wonderfully, boringly present. They ate grass, they swam, they sunned themselves on rocks. They didn't therapize other animals. They didn't offer wisdom. They just lived. The realization hits you like a fallen branch. You've complicated your life beyond recognition. Somewhere your ancestors are looking down at you, confused about why you're not just eating and swimming and reproducing like a normal capybara. A bat swoops past, probably dealing with its own echolocation insecurities, and you have a moment of perfect clarity. Every animal here has survived millions of years of evolution without therapy. The toucans managed their fruit anxiety through natural selection. The monkeys worked out their social hierarchies without counseling. The caimans dealt with their predatory nature by, well, being predators. You're not necessary. The thought should be depressing, but instead, it's oddly freeing. The ecosystem wouldn't collapse if you stopped being available for emotional processing. The sun would still rise, the rains would still come, eventually, and anxious animals would find other ways to cope, just like they did for millennia before someone decided capybaras were nature's therapists. I think I need to cut back on honey, the kinkajou concludes after 20 minutes of circular reasoning. But like tomorrow, tonight I need it for emotional support. The irony of needing emotional support while talking to an emotional support animal who needs emotional support but can't ask for it makes your brain hurt. You're trapped in an infinite loop of caregiving with no care receiving, and the only escape is admitting that maybe, just maybe, you weren't built for this. In a parallel universe, there's a version of you who just eats grass. This alternate you doesn't know the toucan's name, hasn't heard about the turtle's temporal anxieties, and definitely hasn't provided couples counseling to monkeys. This other you wakes up, decides between tender shoots or mature leaves based purely on dental satisfaction, and considers it a full day. You're so wise, the kinkajou says, before scampering off to find honey. Just being near you makes me feel better about my choices. But you didn't do anything. You just sat there, having your own crisis, while the kinkajou worked through its issues independently. Maybe that's the greatest irony. Everyone thinks they need you, but they're really just using you as a mirror to hear themselves think. You could be replaced by a vaguely capybara-shaped rock, and the therapy would be just as effective. The young capybara yawns, and you see your past self in that tired face. Still innocent, still believing that being helpful is the highest calling, not yet realizing that helpful can become a prison, that being needed by everyone means never getting to just need yourself. Tomorrow will be busy, the young one says, sleepily. The seasonal migration is starting. Everyone will be anxious about change. Tomorrow, another day of absorbing everyone's migration anxiety, while your own needs, simple needs, grass-eating needs, water-floating needs, get pushed aside for the greater good. The greater good that existed just fine before you became its unwilling therapist. What if you just didn't? What if tomorrow you woke up and just ate grass? What if when the toucan arrived, with its inevitable fruit crisis, you just kept chewing, acknowledging its presence with nothing more than basic mammalian courtesy? What if you reclaimed your original purpose, being a large rodent who processes vegetation? The thought is so radical, so fundamentally against everything you've become, that it makes you dizzy. Or maybe that's just hunger. When did you last eat a proper meal? Not a few rushed bites between therapy sessions. but a real, satisfying grass feast where you could focus on nothing but the simple pleasure of mastication. Your purpose, you realize with startling clarity, was never to be everyone's emotional support. Your purpose was to be a capybara. Full stop. Everything else, the therapy, the wisdom, the eternal availability, that's just what happens when you forget that sometimes the most profound thing you can do is simply exist without explanation or justification. Dawn arrives like an unwelcome house guest, and with it comes a familiar silhouette in the morning mist. Your heart sinks. It's the spider monkey, Clara. She insists you call her, and you can tell from her posture that this is about Derek. Again, this will be the 5th Derek-related crisis this week, and it's only Thursday. I know what you're thinking, Clara begins, which is ironic because no one ever actually knows what you're thinking. But this time, it's different. He shared a fig with Patricia. A whole fig. You want to point out that last Monday the crisis was Derek not sharing figs. Tuesday, it was the way he shared figs, apparently too casually. Wednesday was about the meaning behind fig sharing in modern monkey society. But pointing out patterns would require engagement, and you're running dangerously low on whatever internal resource makes engagement possible. The young capybara stirs beside you, immediately alert to the learning opportunity. You can feel their eagerness to watch you handle this situation with your trademark calm. The pressure of being watched while you perform emotional labor adds another layer to your exhaustion. It's like being a teacher who never gets to leave the classroom, even when you're dying inside. A whole fig, you repeat, because sometimes echoing back is all you can manage. Your voice sounds hollow even to yourself, but Clara interprets it as deep understanding. Exactly. A whole fig. Not a half, not a quarter. The entire thing. And figs are so rare right now with the weird weather. What does it mean? What it means is that you're about to swim away. Not metaphorically, literally. You're going to slip into the water while Clara is mid-sentence and just go. Follow the current wherever it takes you. Become one of those mysterious capybaras that locals occasionally spot but can never quite pin down. Oh, that one? Yeah, it just swims through sometimes. Doesn't talk to anyone. Kind of rude, honestly. Zoologists still debate whether capybaras can experience decision fatigue or if their consistent behavior indicates unlimited patience. You're about to become a case study in capybara breaking points. The scholarly papers will be fascinating. Sudden onset antisocial behavior in previously therapeutic capybaras, a case study. And then Clara continues, apparently unaware that you've mentally already left. Patricia groomed him for like 10 whole minutes. 10, that's intimate grooming time. That's not casual acquaintance grooming. Your legs twitch toward the water. Just a few steps. You're semi-aquatic. Water is literally half your identity. Surely no one could fault you for embracing your aquatic side a bit more fully. Like permanently. The ocean is big. Lots of places to hide. Do capybaras even go in the ocean? you could be the first. A pioneer, the seafaring capybara who abandoned therapy for salt water. Are you listening? Clara demands. And this might be it. The moment, the break. Because no, you're not listening. You haven't been listening since Derek. Crisis number 3. You've been calculating swimming distances and wondering if you can hold your breath long enough to escape underwater without anyone following. Of course you lie, but the lie feels different this time. Heavier, like the last lie you're willing to tell. The young capybara shifts nervously, sensing something off in your demeanor. Good. Let them learn early that there are limits. That even the most patient animal in the wetlands has a breaking point. That maybe, just maybe, it's okay to swim away from someone's 5th relationship crisis in a week. More animals are arriving now. The toucan with predictable fruit anxiety. The turtle, who's probably developed 17 new temporal theories overnight. The margay, seeking authenticity, validation. The agouti with its hoarding guilt. They're all converging on your location like you're some kind of emotional emergency room that's always open, always staffed, always ready to absorb whatever they need to discharge. I think, Clara says dramatically, I need to confront them. Both of them. Together. With you there as a mediator. No. The word forms in your mind so clearly, so definitively, that for a moment you think you've said it out loud. But Clara is still talking, planning some elaborate confrontation that would definitely involve you sitting between upset monkeys for hours, moderating their fig-based jealousy issues. Your feet are in the water now. When did that happen? The cool sensation travels up your legs, reminding you that you're aquatic. Aquatic animals can swim away. It's not abandonment, it's migration. Lots of animals migrate. You'd just be migrating indefinitely, without a return date or a forwarding address. So I was thinking tomorrow morning, Clara continues, oblivious to your lower half disappearing into the water. Before the heat gets too bad, you could help us work through the fig-sharing boundaries and maybe establish some grooming protocols? The phrase grooming protocols hits you like a physical force. This is what your life has become. You're scheduling sessions to help monkeys establish grooming protocols. Your ancestors didn't evolve for millions of years so you could mediate fruit-based relationship drama. They evolved so you could eat grass and swim and maybe make more capybaras. Simple things. Authentic things. Things that don't require an advanced degree in primate psychology. Actually, you start, and the word feels foreign in your mouth. You don't say, actually. You say, of course, and tell me more. And how does that make you feel? But actually implies disagreement, boundaries, the possibility of no. Clara stops mid-plan, her eyes widening. The toucan pauses its approach. Even the turtle seems to slow its already glacial pace. The entire wetland holds its breath, waiting to see if their emotional support capybara is about to do the unthinkable. Actually, you repeat, stronger now, the water reaching your belly. I need to... But the words die as you see the young capybara's face. The trust there. The belief that you'll handle this like you always do. The faith that some animals are just built for carrying others' burdens. Your legs, which had been moving deeper, stop. Not today. Maybe not ever. But not today. I need to think about the best approach, you finish lamely, the revolution dying in your throat. It's a complex situation. Clara beams, interpreting your near breakdown as deep therapeutic consideration. The young capybara relaxes, faith restored. The assembled animals settle in for another day of using you as their emotional processing plant. And you stand there, half submerged, the closest you've come to freedom evaporating like morning mist. The water calls to you with new urgency after your failed escape attempt. Clara is still chattering about fig protocols when you make a decision, not a big, dramatic decision like swimming away forever, but a small one. You're going to submerge. Completely. Right now. Mid-conversation. So I was thinking we could establish a fig-sharing chart. Clara's voice cuts off as you sink beneath the surface, and the silence is so beautiful you nearly weep. If capybaras could weep underwater, can they? Another thing to not think about. Underwater, the world transforms. The monkey complaints become muffled bubbles. The toucan's fruit anxiety can't reach you here. Even the turtle's temporal philosophies have to wait at the surface. For up to 5 minutes, 5 blessed, glorious minutes, you can be emotionally unavailable. You open your eyes in the murky water and find a small fish staring at you. For one horrible moment, you think it's going to start discussing its scale insecurities, but it just swims away. No therapy needed. No validation required. It sees a large mammal holding its breath and responds appropriately with indifference. This is revolution in increments. You can't swim away forever, but you can disappear for 5-minute intervals. It's not much, but it's something. A boundary, microscopic as an algae cell, but still a boundary. Above, you can see Clara's distorted form gesturing at the water's surface. She's probably explaining your behavior to the others. Oh, that's just their centering practice. Very wise. Going underwater to find inner peace. Let her. Let them all invent reasons why your avoidance is actually wisdom. You're just trying to find 5 minutes of peace in a life that's become an endless therapy session. Zoologists still debate whether capybara's diving behavior serves purely practical purposes or has social elements. You're adding a new category, therapeutic avoidance. Sometimes a capybara dives not to escape predators or find food, but to escape being furniture for emotionally needy primates. Your lungs start to burn around minute 3. Not badly, just enough to remind you that you're still a mammal, still bound by basic biological needs. But those needs are yours. The burning is yours. This discomfort belongs entirely to you, and there's something beautiful about having a sensation that doesn't require you to manage someone else's feelings about it. A thought occurs. You could do this every time someone approaches with that particular look, the I need to process look. just slide underwater before they can fully launch into their issue. Sure, they'd wait, but at least you'd get 5 minutes of preparation time. 5 minutes to remember that you're a separate being with your own needs, not just an emotional support dispensary. You surface with deliberate slowness, hoping maybe Clara has given up. She hasn't. If anything, your underwater retreat has given her time to organize her thoughts into bullet points. You catch, and thirdly, the grooming duration suggests, before you make another executive decision. You submerge again. This time, the young capybara follows you down, eyes wide with curiosity underwater. They paddle closer, and you brace yourself for submarine therapy sessions. But they just float there, watching, learning. Maybe what they're learning isn't what you intended to teach. Instead of modeling perfect availability, you're demonstrating the art of strategic avoidance. When you surface the second time, something has shifted. Clara looks annoyed. Are you okay? You keep disappearing. The question hangs in the air. Are you okay? No. You haven't been okay since you became the wetland's unpaid therapist. But admitting that would open a conversation you don't have energy for. So instead, you do something revolutionary. You don't answer. You just float there, letting the question dissipate like ripples in water. I think the toucan pipes up, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. Our capybara friend is demonstrating the importance of self-care. You neither confirm nor deny. You just exist, half submerged, physically present, but emotionally checked out. It's not as satisfying as swimming away forever, but there's something powerful about being bodily here while making your emotional labor temporarily unavailable. Clara tries again, but about Derek and the figure, you submerge. This time, you stay down for the full 5 minutes, pushing the edge of your lung capacity. It's uncomfortable, but it's your discomfort, chosen and controlled by you. When you finally surface, gasping slightly, Clara has retreated to a nearby branch, discussing your weird mood with another monkey. Good. Let them think you have moods. Let them realize that even capybaras have off days. That availability isn't a constant state, but something that can be withdrawn, even if only in 5-minute increments. The young capybara surfaces near you. Is this a new technique? They ask quietly. Strategic submersion for boundary setting? The fact that they've framed your desperate avoidance as a technique makes you want to laugh and cry simultaneously. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the next generation of emotional support capybaras needs to learn about boundaries from the start. Maybe they can avoid the total burnout you're experiencing. Sometimes, you say carefully, being unavailable is the most honest thing you can do. It's not quite the wisdom they're expecting, but it's the truest thing you've said in years. The young capybara nods slowly, processing this radical idea that caring for others might require caring for yourself first. Throughout the day, you refine your new practice. Monkey approaching with relationship drama, underwater. Toucan with fruit anxiety, underwater. turtle with temporal theories, underwater. It's not a complete solution. You still have to surface, still have to deal with their issues eventually. But those 5-minute breaks become lifelines, tiny pockets of peace in an otherwise overwhelming existence. By evening, the animals have started adjusting. They wait by the water's edge, timing their approaches for when you surface. Some even seem to understand, offering their problems in shorter, more manageable chunks. It's not the complete freedom you fantasized about, but it's something. As the sun sets, you float at the surface, feeling something you haven't felt in years. A tiny spark of hope. You've found a boundary, small as it is. And if you can find one, maybe you can find others. Maybe you can't stop being the wetlands therapist, but perhaps you can be a therapist with limits, needs, and the radical ability to be temporarily unavailable. Night falls once more, and as you float in your favorite spot, the water still lower than you'd like, but at least it's there. A strange feeling settles over you. It's not quite peace, but it's not the crushing exhaustion of the morning either. The underwater retreats have helped, creating small pockets of solitude in your overwhelmed existence. Maybe that's enough. Maybe enough is enough. The young capybara paddles over, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who's learned something important today. I've been thinking about what you showed me, they say. About being unavailable sometimes. It feels wrong, but also necessary. You nod slowly. They're starting to understand the central paradox of being needed. You can't sustain others without sustaining yourself. It only took you years of complete depletion to figure that out, but maybe they can learn it faster. Being needed, you say, choosing your words carefully, is both a burden and a purpose. The trick is making sure the burden doesn't erase the being carrying it. It's the most honest thing you've said to anyone in years. Not a platitude, not empty wisdom, but hard-won truth delivered with the exhaustion of someone who's learned it too late. A few regulars appear at the water's edge. The toucan, the agouti, the perpetually anxious howler monkey. But something's different. They're not rushing forward with their problems. They're just sitting, waiting, being present without demanding presence from you. We talked, the toucan says quietly, about how you've been underwater a lot today. And maybe we've been... It trails off, apparently struggling with the concept of taking too much. Zoologists still debate whether animals can experience collective guilt or if behavioral changes in groups are purely instinctual. You're witnessing something that might be either or both. A community realizing that their resource, you, isn't infinite. The turtle, moving at its typical pace, finally arrives. I've been thinking about time again, it begins, and you brace yourself. Specifically, about how we might be taking up too much of yours. The admission hits you unexpectedly. All day, you've been fighting for boundaries, stealing underwater moments, planning elaborate escapes. And now, just as you had started accepting your fate as the eternal therapist, they're offering you something you'd given up hoping for: recognition. We set up a schedule, the agouti adds, producing what appears to be a bark chip with scratch marks. Different animals get different days, and everyone gets 5 minutes max, unless it's a real emergency. 5 minutes. The same amount of time you can hold your breath underwater. The synchronicity makes you want to laugh or possibly cry. They're offering you the same escape interval you'd been stealing, but above water, in conversation, where you can breathe. And Wednesdays, Clara the spider monkey chimes in from a branch, are yours. No therapy. You just be a capybara. Be a capybara. The phrase echoes in your mind like a forgotten prayer. When did being yourself become a scheduled activity? But you'll take it. A whole day to just eat grass, swim without purpose, exist without being furniture for anyone's emotional needs. The young capybara is watching this negotiation with fascination. This is their education now, not how to be endlessly available, but how to be sustainably helpful, how to give without emptying yourself, how to be needed without losing your identity in the needing. You float there, surrounded by the creatures who've used you, needed you, perhaps even loved you in their anxious way. And for the first time in memory, you don't feel like running away. Not because you've accepted your fate as their eternal therapist, but because they've finally seen you. Not as a service, but as a being who provides a service. There's a difference, vast as the wetlands themselves. Thank you, you say, and mean it. The words feel strange. When was the last time you thanked anyone? You're always the one being thanked, usually while someone's sitting on your back, processing their childhood trauma. The night deepens, and one by one, the animals drift away. But it's different from before. They're not leaving because they've gotten what they needed. They're leaving because they respect that you need something too. Time, space, the simple dignity of not being constantly available. Clara pauses before disappearing into the canopy. About Derek and the fig thing, I figured it out myself. Turns out I just needed to think out loud for a bit. You don't always have to have answers. The revelation that your primary function might just be existing while others work through their own problems feels both deflating and liberating. All this time, you thought you were actively fixing everyone. Turns out, maybe you were just a safe space for them to fix themselves. As the wetland settles into its nighttime rhythm, you find yourself alone with the young capybara. They're quiet, processing the day's lessons about boundaries and balance, availability and absence. Is it hard, they ask finally? Being needed? You consider the question, really consider it. The weight of it all, the endless sessions, the borrowed anxieties, the performed calm while chaos swirled inside you. But also the purpose it provided, the connections formed, the strange honor of being trusted with everyone's vulnerabilities. Yes, you say honestly, it's hard. Some days it's too hard. But maybe you pause searching for truth rather than wisdom. Maybe being needed isn't the worst fate, as long as you remember that you need things too, like Wednesdays, and underwater time, and the right to sometimes just be a large rodent who likes grass. The young capybara nods, absorbing this final lesson. You can see them mentally adjusting their future, adding boundaries to their natural helpfulness, learning to be supportive without being consumed. You close your eyes, feeling something you haven't felt in so long you'd forgotten its name: contentment. Not the performed contentment you show others, but the real thing. It's not perfect. Tomorrow there will still be anxious toucans and confused monkeys and temporally challenged turtles. But there will also be limits, respect, and Wednesdays. Maybe that's what balance looks like. Not the absence of burden, but the presence of boundaries. Not freedom from being needed, but freedom within it. You're still the wetland's emotional support capybara, but now you're also sometimes just a capybara, floating in increasingly precious water, existing without explanation. The stars emerge one by one, their light dancing on the water's surface as your breathing naturally slows. The young capybara has drifted off, finally releasing their vigilant watch over your therapeutic techniques. Around you, the wetlands breathe in their ancient rhythm, in and out, expand and contract, give and take. Your body grows heavier in the most pleasant way, each muscle releasing its held tension into the supporting water. Those tight shoulders that carried so many worries, they soften, spreading like ripples across a still pond. The jaw you've kept carefully relaxed while others process their fears, it finally, truly unclenches, letting go of its performed serenity to find the real thing underneath. Tomorrow will come with its own needs, its own parade of creatures seeking comfort and understanding. But tomorrow also holds the promise of boundaries respected, of underwater moments stolen for yourself, of Wednesdays where you can simply exist as nature intended, a gentle herbivore in cooling water, nothing more or less than exactly what you are. The water holds you like it always has, patient and undemanding, asking nothing but offering everything: buoyancy, relief, a place to rest your wonderfully ordinary body. Your breathing deepens, each exhale carrying away another layer of the day's accumulated worries, both yours and borrowed. They dissolve into the vast wetlands, absorbed by something larger than any one creature's capacity to hold. Here in the darkness, with only the stars as witness, you don't have to be wise or available or endlessly patient. You can just breathe, in through your nose, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs, out through your mouth, releasing everything that isn't yours to carry. The rhythm is hypnotic, older than thought, simpler than any problem brought to your makeshift riverside office. Your eyelids grow heavy with earned exhaustion rather than emotional depletion. This tiredness is clean, honest, the kind that comes from a day survived and boundaries established. As sleep approaches on soft, silent feet, you let yourself sink into its embrace without resistance or analysis. You are exactly where you need to be, floating between water and sky, between waking and sleeping, between helping others and honoring yourself. Your breathing slows to match the eternal rhythm of the wetlands itself, until you can't tell where you end and the peaceful darkness begins. That's the end for today. Sweet dreams.